Hello and welcome to the show. I'm V. LaBianca.
I'm Eric Murphy.
This is Skeptic Generation.
And we need to talk.
Hi. I get to say hi first.
That's right.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
V. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited about this week. We've got a lot going on.
We really, really do. We are going to be putting out content more days this week than not.
Some form of content for sure. Not everything's going to be on the YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah, we are going to be having our senior patron Discord hang this week at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, and that'll go out as a notification on Discord as well. We are going to be having our one-on-one conversations with Dean's List patrons this week, which is exciting. And on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., it's already scheduled on the website, for the page, everything. We are doing Versus, which is a brand new concept. We're actually going to be debating each other. We're going to be having conversations we normally have with callers, but one-on-one. And it is going to be live. It's going to be call-in. So we are going to have somebody on the phone. And if you have thoughts, if you have answers to the questions that we're asking,
or if you just think one of us is terribly, terribly wrong,
you can call in and give us your 2 cents, same number. Speaking of numbers, if you would like to call into this show and talk with us about your deeply held beliefs, you can give us a call at 585-526-8774 or tiny.cc/callsg. All right, Eric, want to shill our Patreon?
Sure. So as always, our show is brought to you by you. We do our best to get this show out for free for everybody who wants to watch it on YouTube. We also put this out as a podcast. If you like it, but you're also like, holy crap, I'm tired of the ads, and you want to get an ad-free version, consider becoming a patron. You can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. There you can get ad-free versions of the podcast, of the live show, as well as things like the benefits that V was bringing up. So there are hangouts at certain levels, one-on-one calls with us. Yeah, and we appreciate it. It goes towards our goals, even the Verses, right? Our big goal this year is to get a producer and to get an editing computer so that we can just focus on the calls and not have to take turns doing all of the actual production and hosting at the same time.
We know it gives it a nice little flair, but we really want to get a better set and set up really nicely. And to do that, we need a computer and a producer to use that computer. So what we are going to be doing this entire year is raising money for it. Any super chats for this, for Versus, go directly to that. So yeah, we're gonna be expanding.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. It's gonna be nice. It's a lot, it's a lot, but we're doing our absolute best. Thank you for your patience while we get through technical issues and, little things here and there. It's just
if we're right, we will never have to worry about the clicky on the broadcast again.
If we're right.
If we figured this out, we're good. We never have to worry about it again. Then I'm very excited. One more thing. We are about halfway through January. We just relaunched our merch line on spring. The first thing that we want to point out here is we've got Class of 2022 merch ready to go. You can find that linked on our YouTube page below this video, as well as on Spring. And we're doing a sale all of January, so $2 off of everything. That ends in January. It's still going to be super affordable. We're not raising prices at all. But if you want to go grab some of that, that's something that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're really, really excited for those of you who snatched up 2021 merch. It's never going on sale again. So that means hopefully someday if we see you at a convention or something like that, I'd love to see 2021 or 2022. We want to know when you found us.
Yeah.
And you can show that off to other people. Let them know you're an OG.
Okay.
All right. And then people are commenting on my looks today. I'm not wearing glasses because my glasses broke. So I'm wearing contacts and I'm trying my absolute best to see the screen. So please be patient with me, especially if I'm having trouble filling out the caller names and stuff at the bottom.
I'm wearing enough glasses for the both of us.
Yes, you are. All right.
Okay, so last week we had some really interesting callers, and 2 of them called back this week, which is very exciting. So we're going to take those callers first. First, we're going to talk with Isaiah in Korea. Last week, he talked about confronting a pastor who he felt was endangering some of the kids at the church, and he's calling back because it sounds like he just realized he's been in a cult. Isaiah, welcome to the show again.
Yeah, I'm sorry to call you guys again. I hate those people who call in every week. But
well, it's usually like if somebody wants to make the show like, oh, I'm going to have a segment on SkepGen now. That's usually a pain, but you've got an update, man.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, no, I genuinely do, because actually I accidentally set my alarm clock. 'Cause I usually have to stay up really late in order to talk to you guys. But I just went off, so I'm like, well, I might as well call them. So anyway, it was on accident. But so I've always thought anybody who joined a cult was an absolute idiot, man. This is irony coming back to bite me, because last week I called in about this guy who I confronted. Well, that whole thing sent off a series of events that after I... Oh, God, it's getting me scared just to think about it right now, because it sent off a series of events, and these people actually, I had my daughter and wife with me, and we were staying at a room that they were providing us, because I actually don't live in Seoul. I'm a missionary at the bottom, and I came up, and this is one of the reasons why I haven't been so able to catch on quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just put everything together, because these people actually, after they found out the kind of things I was doing, tried to change the locks and like lock me in.
Yikes! Lock you in?
I know. I can't even tell you. I literally was afraid of for my daughters. It's like if those people would have showed up with axes and killed us, it would have. I wouldn't have had any. I had to get in there, get my stuff, and get out, man. And one of the guys threatened me like over the phone. It was so scary. I mean,
did you contact the authorities?
I don't even know what to tell you as far as.
Yeah, are you guys okay?
What? Yeah, we got out of there ASAP. It's just when I look back, it was a series of events that have been going down for the last year and a half. One thing here and one thing here. It was never any one thing at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I looked back in retrospect of the kind of things that they were doing, and the fact is that I wasn't around them every single week, because I live, as I said, at the bottom of South Korea.
Okay.
Well, so I don't really even have a question. I'm just wondering, like, I can't believe that I could gotten roped in for that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just a little bit freaked out right now. If you could give me anything on like how do you freaking spot it? I feel really idiotic right now, honestly.
No, don't, because here's the thing. First of all, I'm glad you're safe. You did the right thing getting out of there
absolutely.
And getting your family to a safe place. So very, very good on you there. Don't feel stupid. Don't feel like an idiot. People think that about cult members, but it really is not the case. You can, of course, be looped in if you're maybe a child or maybe somebody who doesn't have a lot of critical thinking skills, but they do prey on people who are fairly educated. There are people of all walks of life in cults.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, there are plenty of times that I've kind of in the history of cults that you've seen that there are university professors, very respectable, very brilliant people that get brought in, and I think one of the important things here is, Christian, you're still a believer.
This is Isaiah.
Or, I'm sorry, Isaiah. You're still a Christian, right? I apologize.
Christian, you're still an Isaiah, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I had it. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
No, please.
Okay. The reason I bring it up is because I feel like there are. Oh, hold on just a second. Anyway, I feel like there's something really, really important to point out here. That is, number one, don't feel bad because people get brought in by this. But another is that, how do we prevent this moving forward? And I think that even if you are a believer, I think practicing skepticism can help insulate you from getting taken advantage of in the future, because if these people aren't who you thought they were, it sounds like they were getting a lot of benefit from you. And if that labor of yours came and they were not providing, you know, a reasonable return to you for that, that's taking advantage of you, dude. They took advantage of you.
Oh, they took way advantage.
Yeah.
And by the way,
what's up?
I just donated $25 for your computer.
Aww.
But the thing is because Eric, when you came on my channel, which hope to talk to V soon, but when you came on my channel, I told you that I believe that a healthy dose of skepticism inside of Christianity is a really good thing. Because I'm a Christian and I saw so many people falling for, in fact, I would even call it like a cult, the cult of Trumpism and QAnon. Someone, in fact, who was like, my mom passed away on my birthday about 13 years ago. And so a woman who had become like my adopted mother, I saw her completely change who she was after Donald Trump got elected. I mean, to the point where it's like, I saw her debating her own sons and like online and stuff, to the point of like, you know what I mean? Like wanting to disown them. Like I couldn't believe it, because she was never even anything close to like that. And it was just one thing at a time after another, to where she just was kind of like totally off the, I can't even talk to her anymore. You know, I cannot have a conversation with her anymore.
Yeah.
And she's been like my mom. So
honestly, I feel you. I know so many people who are in the same exact situation with their parents. One of the ways that you are noticing when your adoptive mother came into this maybe cult-ish mentality, and the way you're looking at it now from the outside, having possibly been in one for the last while. A good way to...
No, I was in one.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're not falling prey to love bombing. So there's something that cults tend to do is don't pay attention to how it's making you feel as much as pay attention to how other people are being treated. And it sounds like that kind of was something you were doing already, looking at the kids in this organization and worrying about them and their safety. Because a lot of the time, if they want to rope you in, they'll be really nice and they'll make you feel really good. But you know, keep an eye on the people who have been there for a while. How are they being treated? Are there things that are off? Are there red flags? So definitely making sure you have enough empathy for other people that you're reaching out and being like, hey, are you okay? I'm seeing some things that are concerning. Let me pursue that.
And just, I don't know. I think I brought this up last week, possibly not on this call, but on another. Have you checked out any of the channels that I brought up that kind of do stuff around cults? Like Telltale does a lot of really, really good work about cults.
Yeah. That guy's great.
Genetically Modified
He's great.
Skeptic.
I love that guy's channel.
Drew does really, really good stuff. In fact, there's a place that crosses over, and the Antibot does stuff that's kind of similar. There are similar tactics that get used in the MLM kind of sphere, but checking those out, there is a scale, and there are tests that you could use that can help identify it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm personally qualified, but I do think that those are some resources.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're okay, Isaiah.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't... I'm literally... It's going to take me months to process this, because... as I've said, and actually speaking of empathy, my channel's name is Empathy Respect. Sorry, I'm not trying to plug it, but just that's a really big part of why I talk to atheists and very empathetically and without trying to convert or debate. But I'm so glad that I actually had this experience, because this gives me so much empathy to deal with people who I thought were just like, even my own adopted mom, you know what I mean? The way that she's got roped into that mentality where I can't even have a conversation with her. I realize now how people, it's like the whole proverbial frog getting boiled.
Yeah.
I could have seen if I was, because I only came up once a month to deal with him, You know what I mean?
Right,
I was
right.
just getting ready to do this camp, and I was trying to address these issues before we did the next camp, which is why I had my family down. You know, 'cause
Right.
they were going to house us. They house us occasionally, and so yeah, it just a series of events went off. But I want to get off right now because I don't want to hog up the mic. But I did make that super chat because I think it's so healthy what you guys do, and I want to be a supporter of you guys because I've been listening for around like 6 months before I decided to call in.
Yeah.
I was really nervous about calling in because like I'm just not a confrontational person. Well, we kind of discussed that last week about not really like wanting to be confrontational about debates,
Right.
and stuff, you know.
But
And so that's just not my style.
yeah, well,
But thank you guys for what you do. Just thank you guys.
Well, we appreciate you calling in, and we're glad that you got your family out of there, and best of luck. I know that this is not something that's going to be going away overnight, but this was a good experience if you can draw something from it and protect yourself in the future.
definitely
Right.
take care. And if there's
thank you.
if there's a place, or if there's a, you know, if calling the authorities, calling the police is called for, you should. Like it isn't always, but if that is, please do if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I should have told you this. I should have updated you on this. I let them know that I was going to call them, and then they all just stopped communicating. I was going to call the police on them because they dismissed everything I said. And
Then they
so
stopped.
I was just like, okay. And I was just at a hotel, like literally. And I realized at 4 a.m. that I had the ability to do it, and I hadn't done it the day before that I told you I was going to do it. So I left my hotel at like 4 a.m. and just walked down there, and I said, I got to do the right thing right here and right now. And I called it, and I reported it in, and I talked to them, and then none of them have responded or anything. They all just went totally dead. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Good.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're glad you called, people, and
Thank you.
take care, you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. Oh my gosh. That Isaiah had a week too.
Seriously, oh my goodness.
I feel like my week suddenly got a lot less
Just imagine
hectic.
grabbing your family and needing to flee. Like,
Well, I mean, I've done that too.
true. Well, then you know. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair.
that's not something you come back from right away, but I'm glad that they're all safe now.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who escaped cults, this is a theme this week, apparently, you guys.
It really is. Before we take them, though,
Yeah.
I did want to just say that we do have other spaces. We've got a couple calls in the chat in the queue, but we'd love to have some more to choose from. If you are a believer, if you believe in ghosts, psychics, if you believe in chakras or something, you know, just give us a call. Tell us what you believe and why. We want to listen. We want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, and the lines tend to fill up later in the show because all the Christians get out of church. So if you want to get in before that, give us a call now. All right, let's talk with Elle in Arizona, who was part of the vampiric sex cult earlier.
That's oof.
Yeah. Elle,
Hi, Elle.
I know Eric had so many questions for you last time, and you're calling back to continue that conversation.
Yes, I am. I just need to gather my thoughts for a second because Isaiah's call, I feel like you're getting two callers from flip sides of the same coin, and I just, my heart goes out to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've been there, and I'm so sorry.
Well, hey,
It
this
gets
is why
better,
we
I
have
promise.
this is why we have the show, so that people can be like, "Hey, I had this experience and it sucks," and other people can empathize and not feel as alone. Elle, tell us a little bit more about. I know that Eric, you had lots of questions last week.
I do. I know, Elle, you wanted to reach out during the week. I apologize. I was crazy busy during the week, and I really appreciate you calling back in.
Oh, no worries.
Go ahead.
Everyone is busy. I'm trying to write my thesis too, so it's happens.
Well, I appreciate it. So, really, the reason I wanted you to call back and the reason I want you to give a little bit more information is, and just for people who have not been following the saga of this, I did a guest appearance on a show called Miracles and Atheists where I talked to a gentleman named Bill Schneblin. Bill was a contributor to the Satanic Panic in the 80s. He consulted with Jack Chick on stuff with for about the evils of D&D. He also says he was an ex-Satanist, ex-cultist, ex-yada yada yada yada, ex-vampire, and we thought that was pretty nuts. But you called in and said that you were actually in a vampiric cult, and you're out. And the reason I have all these questions is because I feel like if we leave it at that, someone might still walk away thinking that vampires exist. So someone might walk away thinking that you gained super strength for a while, or that you lost the ability to see yourself in the mirror, or that you developed an aversion to garlic, or that that those groups, that there are people who can get all of their nutrients from blood, or things like that, right? And because of that, I know it's silly, but I want to be super clear on every one of those points, because I don't want to leave anyone to go, oh, well, maybe, and that's why I really wanted you to call back in. So would you mind if I asked you a couple really silly questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to step on you, but
No,
I
go
just want to
ahead.
say that's actually kind of why I wanted to call in and start trying to debunk that guy in the first place, because a lot of these cults, the people in them, genuinely believe these things, but they have these sort of weasel ways of explaining why, the super strength is only in the metaphysical. And so it seems like you and I are kind of on the sort of the same page of like going not all the way down that rabbit hole, because it's very, like, the beliefs of this cult were like crazy complicated when you got down to the nitty gritty. But that chain of like, okay, here's the claim, this is why it was wrong, and these are sort of the weaselly ways the cult like kind of tried to convince us it was true, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay, cool. So during the time that you were supposedly became a vampire, I would understand that if somebody was very, very, into it and they thought, I'm becoming something new, that that they could try and find signs of things. But like Bill said, that he grew really long canines, like Dracula in like the Karloff Dracula. Is it Karloff?
No.
No.
Well, Karloff is
No, not
Wolfman.
Karloff. Who is Dracula?
Bela Lugosi.
Lugosi. Thank you. I'm
The
sorry.
communist icon, the activist.
You're right. Like
Yes.
Bela Lugosi with the bull. Did you grow fangs? Did you know anybody or see anybody who grew fangs over that, other than wearing prosthetics?
Okay, so I'm going to clarify something real quick. I was not one of the vampires in this vampiric sex cult. My role was someone that they fed off of. I was the spiritual psychic healer.
Thrall.
Because
Got
they
it.
believed that. So I would get fed off of, but I was never, quote unquote, burned.
Oh,
but they fully believed that they were vampires. My role was always as like the healer, the diplomat, the person who would smooth over, issues within the cult. And
Oh my gosh.
They
Okay.
So they were emotional
So-
vampires too, is what you're saying.
Oh, that's awful.
yes, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So, did you witness anyone growing supernatural vampire teeth?
Oh, this is going to sound really dumb, but no one actually grew super vampire teeth.
I'm
Several
glad.
of the members. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I'm glad it's really dumb. That's the point. We're good, but you wanted to offer more clarification.
Yeah, so some of the members would like prove they had powers by saying, "Oh yeah, look at my canines. They're super sharp and pointy." Well, everyone's canines are super sharp and pointy, and I noticed it was the members who had slightly more prominent canines that tended to lean into the vampirism. A lot of them were like, "Oh, I'm so pale and I bruise easily because I'm,
Irish?
a vampire." No, literally, though, they were Irish.
See?
100 SPF in the summer because he was the whitest white person I ever knew in my entire life.
I
went on vacation.
I know that we didn't
Sorry.
actually cover that, but I am entirely unsurprised. So
Yeah.
hold on. Just to clarify, like, and also I do know, and I've met people who've had their canines sharpened,
Right.
and who have sharpened their own canines because they were idiots. So like, I get that, which is why I brought up the super long canines. Okay, cool. So let's mark that box as a no. How about super strength, superpowers? You were saying people were saying it only manifested a certain way. Tell us about that experience.
Okay, so to understand that, you have to understand that, and I don't think this is explicitly just my cult, because I know that a lot of other religions even kind of have this tenet where things, you can't see your blessings because they're only in the spiritual realm.
Oh, yeah, that's Christianity, too.
Yeah, no. So what would happen is we believed that the human world was originally joined with the spiritual world, and this is going to sound a lot like Scientology or Mormonism when it gets further into it. But basically, the human world was separated from the spiritual world, and humans and everyone on this planet it's kind of like a spiritual and physical prison. We believed we were all from another dimension, like a spiritual dimension. And we were kicked out of that spiritual dimension to Earth and put in bodies by evil powers that were going to destroy and take over both worlds. And they kicked us into these human bodies to prevent us from stopping the end of the world.
Damn. I mean, I'd read this young adult fantasy.
Yeah, honestly, I'm getting kind of Animorphs vibes. So
y'all are roasting me.
No, not you.
Not you.
Not you.
Definitely not you.
You're talking to people who are former believers in a book where, people, either metaphysically drank the blood and ate the flesh of Jesus Christ and still continue to do so, right? We talk a lot about wild beliefs, not just in the Bible, but, extra biblical stuff like the gifts of the Holy Spirit and how those things, manifest and how people would talk about it, right? Speaking in tongues, all of that, that's all wild too. It's not less wild. It's just for some reason more socially acceptable in places.
Right. I absolutely want to make sure that you understand, Elle. We are not laughing at you, and we don't want to minimize at all the stuff that happened to you. What we are trying to do is engage with this in a way that feels safe for viewers and for you. But if this is not helping, let us know. Yeah,
it is funny, and I personally I feel like it helps.
Wait, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I stop you guys from apologizing, because I actually handle a lot of like the hard stuff I've been through through dark humor. So
okay.
I actually really appreciated your comments. I was just kind of joking and riffing a little bit.
Cool.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Humor can kind of defang the issue.
God
what?
Damn it. God damn it.
Defanging the seriousness? No? Fine. Okay.
Oh my God.
So, okay. So you were giving...
Okay, Okay.
you, Elle. So you were giving a lead up, but I kind of just want to make sure that we're super clear on this. Did you see anybody develop superhuman strength or other superhuman
And
abilities?
all of those superhuman abilities were manifested in this spiritual dimension that was also connected to the multiverse, and the spiritual dimension could.
Okay.
The spiritual dimension was the original real dimension, and therefore it was connected with the multiverses. But since the human dimension was like this spin-off prison that overlapped with the spiritual dimension, regular humans were bad, and that's why climate change exists, and that's why bad people exist, because
Wow.
this is a prison, basically.
Okay.
Oh
Special beings that were going to save the world.
They're like dream warriors in was it Freddy Krueger 3 or something like that. Okay, got it. So they had special abilities, just
You couldn't
not
see
in
it.
the real world. Or in the,
Exactly.
Got it.
cool. Were people able to sustain themselves on drinking blood alone?
Absolutely not. The first leader, who was the one who physically drank my blood, would like claim that she had to eat, but real food made her sick, and so she had to drink my blood. But the others only metaphorically drank my blood, and basically they would like bite my wrist or my arm or my neck, and they like really clamp down. It hurt, and it would leave bruises sometimes. And the first leader did this too sometimes, and they would say they were feeding off the spiritual essence of my blood
Okay.
through my skin. And the bruising was like evidence that they had been sucking my blood
Spiritually.
metaphorically. Yeah.
Oh my
spiritually,
God.
Exactly.
Not metaphorically. Metaphorically, they actually know that they. But like that is nuts. And okay, so V, do you have any other questions? Because I'm trying to think of things that I want to make sure we swat down for people who think that.
Did anybody turn into a bat?
Oh my God, no.
Okay. Just checking.
Live chat. Any other questions for the caller before we go? Because I'm just. Let's see. How about rivalries with werewolves?
That was like one of the dumbest things. Is
Wait, did they?
One of the leaders claimed that she was queen of a bunch of these alternate dimensions. Actually, every ruler or leader, whenever they came into power, would be like, "Oh, the other one was a false leader. I'm gonna."
Of course.
You know, they were actually suppressing the true leader, which is me, and I am the queen of these alternate dimensions where, you know, vampires and werewolves are friends.
Oh, they're friends
and
now.
there
Well,
were
that's good.
Yeah. It was,
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Um,
Elle. Holy crap.
Yeah, so there was a good question here by Randy. Randy Powers in the chat asked, can the leaders get put into prison for this? Are there legal consequences? Like if somebody finds themselves in this situation and they're watching this video, what is available to them? What should they do?
I don't really have a good answer for that. One of the reasons I didn't talk about this until I was an adult is because I did not have a safe family situation, and I was actually in a Catholic school at the time, so I didn't have a safe place to go to adult for help when I was a kid. And then when I was an adult and I was still in this cult, I was at one point engaged to one of the people who thought they were a vampire, not the leader who abused me, but a different one. And we actually kind of left the cult together. But I don't know that there's any legal recourse that I could have taken, because I think one of the most difficult things for me was that I had to sort of figure out why all of this had happened on my own, because Because if I went to the police and said, like, hey, there's like this cult with teenagers, you know, I didn't think they were going to do anything. I don't know. I don't really have any good advice aside from, you know, if you're in something like this, try to record what you can, especially if they're abusing you.
Yeah.
Try to keep documentation of everything that happens. And then if there's something,
well,
but that's the best I can suggest, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of authorities are going to be like, oh my God, this is a really weird little coven that was max, you know, 15 or 20 people, and everyone's just insane and it doesn't matter.
So I got to push back. I think that if you're being abused physically, in particular, it's more difficult to push charges when it comes to emotional abuse. But if you're being physically abused, and this isn't directed at you, Elle, as much as people who are watching, if you find yourself being physically abused, go to the police. Call the police. I would love to kind of poll the chat to help maybe pull together a couple of resources that we can put on the description for this video for people. If you're watching this and you are in a bad place, Elle, thank you for being here on the line. Just hold on a second. If anybody is watching this and is in a bad place, hopefully we'll have those links under the description for this clip and this video as soon as we can. It's going to be okay. You can get out. Elle, the fact that you did get out is really, really hopeful. And I'm really, really glad that you got to share that, because I can only imagine that there are people who feel pretty hopeless.
And I'm really sorry if I sounded like you shouldn't go for help. If you're being abused, you should absolutely go for help. Try and, you know, collect evidence. It just wasn't a safe option for me at the time.
Right.
That's all I wanted to get across, because I'm sure there's people asking, like, why didn't you go to the police, etc. And it just wasn't safe for me at the time.
Absolutely.
To do any of those things.
And that's the other thing we want to make sure that we're stressing here. If you are somebody who escaped something like this, or for whatever reason have decided not to pursue recourse legally or in any other way, that's not something that we as people outside of that situation can judge you for, right? That is not something, we're not going to come at you and say, hey, Elle, you were put in this situation against your will and you were abused by these people, but now it's on you to do something about it. That's not fair either. So if you were to go to the police at some point, if somebody else was to go to the police for their thing, we would support that. We also support you taking priority and saying, that's not safe for me, either emotionally or physically, so I'm just going to protect myself. That's a good call for you if that's what you feel you need to do.
Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to touch on regarding this, that I wrote this down as a point, but a lot of these things, including the one I was in, will vilify any authority besides themselves, including the police, when they can actually help. So there was one point I was crying in the middle of the street on the phone with one of the leaders who was instructing me to perform, you know, some weird ritual thing in public. And the police showed up because some, you know, very nice woman had seen me crying. And, you know, they asked if I needed help, if I needed a ride home. And the cult leader was like, those police are being spiritually controlled. If you go with them, you know, you're going to die. Because that's the other thing is they held spiritual death over us. Like, if a lot of the members didn't have that good family, or they had lost family members in, like, the real world. And so part of the draw of the cult was that, you know, oh, they're all living and fine, and you can talk to them in this spiritual world.
Well, that sounds familiar.
You can have these astral families, and you don't have to wait to die. You can just talk to them now. You know, they're there. If you have powers, you can just talk to them now and interact with them. And, you know, so we would have, like, people would create entire families or believe their family members were still speaking to them. And if you gave up the belief, the onus was you will lose your powers, you will lose all of the people you love here and there, and you will physically die.
Damn.
That
You'll
is
never-
heartbreaking.
That's horrible, Elle. That is horrible. I think we're gonna pause this for now, just because I don't want to push you, and this is certainly something that is very heavy. But thank you for calling and humoring us as we ask you some questions that seem silly, but really need to be talked about, because you're exactly right. They are able to spin these things into descriptions and explanations that don't sound as ridiculous, and it pulls people in. It really does. So thank you for being forthcoming and for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you calling this. I am getting a little tired.
Yeah.
Not of you guys, you're wonderful, but it is kind of
Oh, absolutely.
It's
kind of
emotionally
exhausting to have
exhausting.
to go through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go take care of yourself, take a bath, make some tea, read a book, pet a cat. But we're happy you're here and you're out.
Take care, Elle.
Bye.
The fact that so much of that we can look at and be like, well, that's just on its face ridiculous. Now I'm going to go to church and pray so that I can get into heaven, into the spiritual other realm where I can see my family again. And I don't really want to, but I'm afraid that if I lose my faith and walk away, I lose that spiritual family too. It's
yeah.
the same manipulation tactics. It's just been normalized to the extent that nobody
it's easier
pays
to tap
attention.
it. Yeah.
Ugh, my gosh. Yeah, lots of feelings there. Lots of feelings for sure.
Definitely.
Give Elle some love in the chat, and be patient with us as we work through calls like this with our limited and purely layperson understanding of psychology and
We're
cult
just assholes
behavior
on
and
the internet.
sociology. Yeah, we are not therapists, we are not medical professionals, but we always endorse going to therapy if you can afford it, if you can find it, and getting the help that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who are we talking to next?
Let's talk with Kit in Idaho, because the multiverse got brought up in the last call, and it seems like we're tying things really well today. Kit has a theory about ghosts that has to do with the multiverse.
Okay.
All right, Kit, welcome to the show.
Hi. I don't know if you guys remember me. I called a few weeks ago, like maybe a month or something like that, to say thank you to you guys.
Yeah.
And my theory about the multiverse and ghosts, it's a for fun thing. I by no means adhere to this whatsoever.
good.
I wanted to make that clear. Also, I am driving right now, so if there's some road noise, just let me know and I'll pull over.
Are you using a hands-free device, or are you like, we would rather you drive safe and call back another time if that's the case?
Well, I'll just go ahead and pull over if you want to give me about 2 seconds here.
Sure.
Okay.
Because I'm not using a
Sounds
hands-free
good.
device.
Good.
I'm coming
Okay.
back from camping again, so.
Oh, look at you. I'm jealous.
Yeah, we were camping the other week as well. Right, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we take a week off and just go camp, and it's great.
It's so
I
good.
camped through the winter in Idaho because there's less people out, it's less smoking, and it's less hot.
Yeah, honestly, same with Texas.
Yeah.
All right, well, I found a safe spot.
Good,
Okay,
good.
good.
So here is my fun theory, and I don't know if I picked this up somewhere or, because I've just listened to so much stuff over the years, or it was my own little thought process. But my fun theory on ghosts is it's actually like the fabric between multiverses bumping into each other, and that's why people think they see ghosts, and that's why it's like consistently the same ghost. Like, oh yeah, this little girl lives in this house. Oh, no, it's just the other multiverse, one of the multiverses bumping into it, and it's just timing in that location type of thing. It was just a fun theory I came up with. Because I'm atheist and skeptic, but it's like,
How would we describe this without the spiritual element? Yeah, I've done that kind of thing too. There are lots of
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because, people are adamant about seeing it, and we don't know whether the multiverse is real or not. I like to think it is, because, that'd be a good explanation. And so it was just a fun thought I had that I thought you guys would appreciate and share, or appreciate, because, hey, look, here's a ghost explanation, and it's possibly scientific.
Okay, now I need to pick up Star Trek Discovery again.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely do for other reasons. But no, Kit, the reason that I like this kind of conversation, A, it's just fun to have this kind of like, well,
Yeah.
what if? But also it does give a really interesting counter to people who say, well, it couldn't have been anything else, right? And that's really where this kind
Right.
of thing is going to come in useful. Not necessarily to actually tell people, well, you just stumbled onto a breach in the multiverse, but to say, hey, you're saying it couldn't possibly be anything else. What about this option? How did you rule that out, right?
Right.
Like, how did you determine
another-
it wasn't
Yeah.
the multiverse?
Yeah, here's another unfalsifiable.
Right, exactly. So, yeah,
No, exactly that.
absolutely.
It was just a fun one that I came up with at some point in time. Probably a few years ago. I was like, oh, I wonder. This would be a fun explanation at the very least. I
Well,
don't
thanks for
believe it,
sharing.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The only other thing I had, and I thought about it afterwards when I called before, I did forget to thank Eric for something specifically. Eric, over the years, I've seen you be very open about your mental health issues, and I've gone through very much the same stuff. And I am very outspoken about my stuff, just because I know it gives some other people who aren't a little bit of a comfort zone,
Yeah.
and they realize it's okay to deal with this shit. So I did want to say you're on a much bigger platform than my dumbass speaking in my friends in Idaho, but thank you for being open and the level that you're doing it on. I think more people appreciate this than you'll ever know.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Fun and kind of melancholy one, but let's end with a fun one.
Okay.
Ghosts could possibly be described by the multiverse. That's my theory.
All right, thanks, Kit. Drive safe.
Take care.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. You two. I'll have fun listening to the rest of the show. Thanks.
Bye. Oh my gosh. Yes, please, if you're going to call us, we want your call, but not so desperately that you get into a car accident or
Yeah.
get pulled over.
Kit's adorable.
It's really sweet. Honestly, we've had like ongoing conversations about ghosts as well. I remember there was this one time we just got into like a 3-hour debate about like what it could be and like why certain things might be more plausible than other things. And
Yeah, it's kind of why I'm really looking forward to this upcoming Versus, is because we kind of get to open the door into people seeing how we discuss these things together. That we,
Right.
I mean, we'll sit down and we will just take opposite sides of a thing for days, and
then like we'll talk about it for like 8 hours. Don't worry, we're not going to stream for 8 hours. And then at the end of it, realize that the only reason we've been disagreeing is because of the definition of like an adjective being used in the conversation.
and as soon as we hit common ground on the adjective, we're usually pretty good.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Never mind. Also, for people who are asking, I know a bunch of people were in the chat during Elle's call saying, can we get more information? How did Elle get into this cult? How did Elle escape it? Both of those were kind of covered on the previous call last week that we had with Elle. The clip is up on YouTube and the live stream, I believe it's one of the last calls as well. So you can go check that out. We'll make sure the link to that is in the clip description there. We're seeing Scott, our recurring theist, call in and drop. So we're hoping that he gets to stay on the line. But first, let's talk to Steven in New York. Steven has called in before and wants to talk specifically with Eric about the concept of atheopaganism, it looks like. Scott, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, so yeah, I called quite a while ago after I think it was V responding to an email about issue I was having with a coworker.
Yes.
Who came to me about believing in actual paganism rather than atheopaganism. And when Eric, after a while, Eric started giving looks over at V, and they kind of had a side conversation about, not really a conversation, more like just a big grin about like, yeah, see, this is what happens. And
Yeah.
I said, well, maybe I should call in and have a little bit of a conversation with Eric.
Absolutely.
About
I like this plan.
Why I think that atheopaganism and things like it are kind of valuable.
Okay.
So,
So just to be clear, just so that people kind of understand this discussion that we're having, when you say atheopaganism, you're saying both that you are a pagan and that paganism does not actually accept, the idea that these gods exist. So as an atheo-pagan, could I say that it's similar to like a cultural Jew, somebody who's not actually Jewish but celebrates the holidays?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is, and that's exactly how I explain it to people. When I explain what's going on in regards to what I'm going to actually just completely close the video because that's getting distracting.
Yeah, it can be.
When I explain what I am to people, I say, well, there are Jewish people who consider themselves Jewish. They still practice the rituals. They still do all the traditions, but they don't believe in Yahweh. And when I see that, I see a lot more communal work being done by that community. The Jewish people are very communal, and they work together on a lot of stuff. They have, these rituals and traditions that assist them in their, what do you call them? Like their milestones in their lives. And I think that one of the biggest things that atheists have done, because when I was younger, I was huge in the like New Age atheism and Christopher Hitchens and all that.
Okay.
But one of the biggest things that came out of that, I think, when a lot of people start following that, is that they did lose a lot of the traditions. They did lose a lot of the cultural aspects that they had when they were religious. And I think that became a big conversation within the atheist community of, we took away all of these things, which is good in some aspects, getting rid of these traditional, hegemonic thoughts of this is how you live your life. But at the same time, you're also taking away the holidays. You're taking away, well, not necessarily taking away the holidays, but you're taking away the rituals and the milestones and all that do exist in these cultural practices.
So it reminds me, Stephen, of something that, Eric, you say, which is that in some ways your heritage is Christian. You are in a culture that is Christian, so you celebrate Christmas proudly, right?
I do.
And you're like, hey, this is not just for people who believe.
No, that's my cultural inheritance.
Right. So I feel like what I've seen mostly from atheo-pagans, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just swapping that holiday out with something that's not Christian and being like, hey, this is my cultural heritage, and this is either one that I've been born into or can trace my lineage back to or have adopted.
Love, yeah.
Yeah. And does that make sense? Because I feel like we already do that with Christianity, even though we aren't Christians. So we have to be careful from saying, you can't do that with that religion, but we're going to do that with Christianity.
That's
and furthermore, I think there's a lot of work, not work, what am I saying? There's a lot of like stories and lessons that can be passed down from place to place. So, like, for example, I would be considered Wakatru by most pagans. I venerate in my practices Fenrir, which is usually looked down upon by most Esatru and Vanatru, which are the people that worship the Aesir, like Thor and Odin, and Vanatru, who worship Freya, and the more agricultural Norse gods. And the reason why I do that is actually because of a social justice aspect. My view on the Fenrir story is an individual who was born and upon his birth was immediately looked at with contempt and with suspicion because of the way he was born. And his freedoms were taken away because of those suspicions without him actually doing anything.
Okay. So, Stephen, I do want to make sure that we're engaging in a conversation. I'm personally, like, I would just want you to, like, tell me these stories and be like, hey, like, this sounds fascinating. I really want to hear what Eric is thinking in terms of what you first brought to the table, which is this kind of equivocation to things like secular Christianity or secular Judaism.
Right. Stephen, I sincerely appreciate it. There was a point in time where you gave so many terms that I'm not familiar with that I glazed over for a minute. I'm so sorry. I want to learn all of the things that I can, but I was not able to catch all of it. But I appreciate that you're sharing, and I hope people who are interested can look that stuff up. Here's where I'm coming from. I celebrate Christmas, but I don't call myself an atheo-Christian. Or a secular Christian. I say that I celebrate holidays that Christians celebrate, or I celebrate. But then again, if I wanted to be snarky, I could say Yule, I guess. But either way, the reason I push back isn't because I don't understand that you exist. I do, and I'm not trying to erase you, and I'm not trying to cancel you at all. In fact, I think that's wonderful, and I've said it for years, and I'll continue saying it, and that is that any excuse you get to tell the people that you love them, any excuse you get to make food and break bread and celebrate those bonds of humanity that we create, I love it, and I endorse it. That said, sorry, where do you?
No, go for it.
That said, the reason I don't put it under the umbrella of atheo-Christianity or secular Christian is because I feel like for people who don't know what that means, they're just going to take that as some denomination of Christian. And because of that, I worry that I'm lending credence to something that I'm not trying to lend credence to.
Oh, I hate this argument so much. This is no, I don't like it. I don't like it.
I know, but hey, you knew I was going to say it.
I knew you were going to go here, and I
this is the argument
disagree
we have.
so strongly.
I know.
So strongly.
I know.
We call ourselves atheists. For a large majority of people, saying you are an atheist is equivalent to saying I eat babies and worship Satan.
Stephen?
Yet we still say atheist.
Stephen, do you see what you've done?
This is why I called.
Stephen's like, my plan is working perfectly.
Are making an alliance as we speak.
No, but here's the thing, and I'm gonna give some kudos to the pagan community online right now. If you are willing to call shit out in other denominations, in other communities that are aligned with yours, and use your voice as a member of that community to say, no, that is wrong, I don't see a problem with it. And pagans do that pretty consistently.
Actually, I have seen that with pagans.
There is a giant war right now with I forget their big name, but there's a big fellowship of a Satru white supremacists. Yeah, and we are fighting hard against them right now.
And it's that is something that is so important, because if you are taking on that name, the same name that they are using to perpetuate this harm, and you're saying, no, that's not okay, that's not acceptable here, that's a huge thing. And I'm not saying I agree with the spiritual elements of it or the supernatural elements of it, but as a community effort, that's an A+ in my book.
It is in mine. That's not something that I'm against.
The core of this is that if you're saying, well, don't use the words because someone might misunderstand, you lose the ability to do that as effectively.
Well, it depends on what hill you're willing to die on. I'm willing to die on the atheist hill. I'm not willing to die on every single one. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I see your point. I just think that,
to draw back to the cultural aspect, I remember growing up with stories like Paul Bunyan and other American myths and legends that we knew were not true, but had a basis of the value being given.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I think that that we lose as we move forward. We don't have these myths and legends to tell stories of that come from like a cultural background. Yeah, we have like comics and movies and such, but they don't have like a legendary like basis that like becomes part of our cultural foundations.
I think time will tell on that, and I hope that you're wrong.
The Johnny Appleseed of yesterday is going to be Tom Holland of tomorrow, I suppose.
Right.
I'm actually thinking more along the lines of like Bob Ross. But anyway, Stephen, while you're on the line and you're kind of connected to this community, I need to ask you a question.
Of course.
Have you heard of English?
Give me the definition, and I admit because I'm bad with names.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's something for a different time.
Is it?
We need to
Okay.
move on. Scott's
Okay.
been waiting. But
Okay.
Stephen, thank you for reaching out. This was honestly super enjoyable for me. And it's always fun when one of the hosts agrees with the caller and the other one doesn't. And
Yeah.
The three-way conversation that happens.
That's taken out of that's gonna.
But
okay.
thanks, Stephen, for calling in.
Thank you, Stephen.
Of course, guys. Love you both. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
I put conversation after it.
I agree.
I didn't just leave it at three-way.
No. There was just enough of a break for it to get clipped.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm fine with this.
Okay, guys, who is more on point here? I'm seeing in the live chat, half the people are like, V and the caller are right, and the other half is like, Eric is right. So battle it out in the comments. Let us know what you think. All right, let's take Scott in South Carolina. Scott has been trying to call in and has been very diligent about it, and wants to talk about why some people look at evidence for God and accept it and others don't. So,
Yeah.
Great question. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric and V, how are you?
Doing good. Excited to talk with you again. Thanks for trying so hard to get on today.
Yeah, we saw you kind of dropping out over and over. We're like, what's going on?
I'm not going to comment. I was having technical difficulties.
We understand. We feel your pain.
Yeah, have you seen the show?
No, it's all user error. So.
Oh my goodness. That's okay. What can we help you with today? What's your question?
Well, that's my question. Last time we spoke, Eric, you asked if I could call back and we could talk about the idea of man's sinful nature, and I want to have that conversation.
Oh,
But
Yay!
I wanted to ask you guys. But I've wanted to ask you this question for some time now, and it's a genuine question. It's not a setup for me to give you my answer. I really do wonder, through 2,000 years of Christian history, and people certainly smarter than me, have been atheists and have weighed the evidence and have completely committed themselves to the Christian idea. Most notably, in my mind, because I'm a big fan, is C.S. Lewis. Was an atheist till he was in his 30s, and finally couldn't deny the evidence. So that's my question to you. Why do some see the same evidence and believe, and others, like yourselves, I'm assuming, see the evidence and say that's not good enough?
So it's funny you should bring up C.S. Lewis. I took an entire class at my Christian college on the Inklings. And so I actually know the story of what Lewis says is the night that he converted, or at least began truly considering it. He was on a midnight walk with Tolkien. And Tolkien was a Catholic, as we know, and he and C.S. Lewis were debating about the existence of God, and C.S. Lewis says it's just myth. Like we are just it's myth, and Tolkien says but where do the myths come from?
Bum bum bum.
And that's what convinced him, allegedly, according to Lewis, was that question. That's what got him. And to me, that's not very good evidence, right? Like, I'm not saying he's not smart. I think that he was brilliant. He was a professor, and just like the Oxford community there every day, like brainstorming amazing story ideas. But that's what got him. And that's kind of the crux of how I would answer your question, which is the evidence doesn't matter. It's not about what convinces the individual person apart from that person. It's how certain kinds of evidence hit a person at a time in their life when that is convincing to them, and everything that leads up to that. We were talking with Elle earlier, I don't know if you were on the line to listen to it, but she was in a very vulnerable, insecure place, and this crazy ass vampire cult comes out of nowhere and tells her what she needs to hear. They didn't have really good evidence. We went through that. It was really bad evidence, but she was in a place where that bad evidence was good enough for her to buy into it. So I think a lot of the time we have these conversations in a very scientific way where it's, well, let's look at this evidence and see, does it fail? Does it stand up to these tests? And we can certainly do that. There's certainly value there. But a lot of the time when you see somebody who is convinced by a thing or unconvinced by a thing, it has less to do with that thing itself than it does that person and how they are engaging with that evidence, and whether or not they are looking at it through a skeptical lens, whether or not they are looking at it with knowledge of where it comes from or the history of the thing, right? So that would be my answer. I would not look at the evidence as much as the person when asking this particular question.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely. I would love to hear your side of it.
Okay, so I know that I can rely on the chat to talk about evidence and what qualifies as evidence, but I kind of want to help give people some language to use to move forward in having this conversation with each other. What V was pointing out was the difference between ontology and epistemology. And I've talked about it before, but I want to bring it up every chance I get because people are still just finding the show and are learning about it. So
apparently someone didn't know we were engaged until last episode.
Yeah, we've been engaged for a long time. Like you proposed, we live together. Yeah. We own a house. We don't own. We're in a home. And we have a home together.
We own a house? No, we don't.
No, we don't. We don't own a house. We're renting. Anyway, but what I was going to say is ontology is the study of what is, right? If you want to talk about whether or not something is true, you compare it to what matches with reality, and you come to ontological understandings and or agreement on that ontology. But what V is pointing out is epistemology, and that's the study of how we know what we know. And so if you were talking to somebody who had a very different epistemology and provided the exact same ontological evidence, but they have a different method of evaluating that evidence, then they're going to come up with that different conclusion, right? So
yeah, you're asking me.
I'm just making sure that you're kind of in agreement, or if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for Eric to shut up so I can jump in and tell him he's wrong.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
So then where we go from that is we kind of need to compare our epistemologies, right? We need to compare and look at what tools are you using to evaluate the world around you that's leading to such a different conclusion than me. What values do you have? You know, and that's where it gets to axiology, right? It's you know, what should you be valuing?
Yeah.
And how are you making sure that you're applying that?
Right. You can make coffee in a coffee maker, and you can make coffee in a, I don't know, like the toaster. I don't know. I'm grabbing an analogy out of nowhere. It's not the coffee that's the problem if it doesn't make coffee. It's where you're putting it and like how you're synthesizing it. So like a lot of the times when you're seeing that, I know that wasn't great. It wasn't.
That's okay.
I haven't drunk all of my coffee yet.
And no problem. Go ahead.
The point that I'm trying to make in a horrible way apparently is that sometimes, not always, sometimes. So we always have to look at the evidence itself, right? And determine, is this good evidence? Is this bad evidence? And then after that, you have to look at how it's being synthesized by the other person. Is that person in a place where they can actively look at that evidence and weigh it accordingly? And what methods are they using? And how are they synthesizing it? Because that is where bad evidence gets accepted, and that's where good evidence doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, after all that, let me see if I understand exactly what you're saying, and because you sort of included C.S. Lewis in the same sort of category as our nice lady who was approached by, what were they, vampires, Satanists? I only caught the tail end of that.
Vampire sex cult.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put them in that same category. And C.S. Lewis is just I'm most familiar with his story than any other atheist, but I have heard accounts of doctors, biologists, people who look at that, for instance, the design of the human body or the design of the cosmos, and come to a point in themselves where they just can't deny the design of it and the order of it and the precision of it.
Well,
and then you have others like a Carl Sagan or a Stephen Hawking or Neil deGrasse Tyson who can't see God in any of it. And I just wonder, and these are not slouchy people. These are well thought out, well reasoned, highly intelligent people, and it's fascinating to me that some see God in it, others can't.
Well,
won't.
Let's pick that apart, because the won't really weirds me out.
Well, yeah, it's the same as if we were saying some people don't see God in it, and some people absolutely will at all costs see God in it, right? Like there's the implication there that one is not being completely genuine.
If somebody is saying something very complex, and they say that's a complex thing, to say, oh well, this person can no longer deny the complex, like, what the heck do you think we're doing? Do you think that Neil deGrasse Tyson is denying the incredible, properties of the universe around him? Do you think that Stephen Hawking was denying the vastness of space and the calculations that he did in it? Do you think that biologists who don't believe in your religion are denying that it's complex or amazing? Like, when you say they can't deny anymore, it sounds like what you're saying is they think, oh well, maybe this is the case, but I'm going to deny it. And then when they when they do believe you, they can deny it no longer. Like, do you see how that really rubs weird?
Sure, it sounds really arrogant. I understand that.
Okay.
No, I get that, and certainly. I just think there's another factor that must be involved here, and that is the leap of faith that it takes to say there is a God, or whichever God they choose to believe in.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm Christian, and so that's where I've gone. But
absolutely. Here's the thing: when you look at something that seems very complex and you don't have an answer for it, that is no longer the realm of science. Science is, this is a complex thing. Let's figure out how it works. Let's figure out, what causes it, what doesn't cause it, what the implications are. Sure, that's science. When you look at that and you go, but how? How in the philosophical sense, why do we exist? Why is this here? You have gone outside the realm of science and you have taken what you call a leap of faith. And that is why it's very dangerous to point to scientists or doctors or anybody else as, authority figures about questions around God, one way or the other. We cannot do appeals to authority here, because once you get into those high ontological questions around why we exist and why we are here and what happened at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of everything, that no longer has anything to do with whether or not you know what happens when two cells, rub together or what the fuck ever. It's no longer in your realm of expertise. You are making a personal claim based on your evidence, one way or the other. Again, we're going back to, is this evidence at all? Sure, it's evidence. Now you're building on a personal level of philosophical inquiry. And some people do that and say there is no God. Some people do that and say there is a God. And some people say, I'm not gonna do that. I don't know. And to say, well, there are scientists on both sides. Sure, of course there are. Of course there are. But it has nothing to do with the science. At this point, it's not about a piece of evidence that proves or disproves it. It's, what do you do in your own philosophical musings with that piece of evidence, right? So we want to avoid appeals to authority here, and we also want to make sure we're delineating between what you said, what is science, and what is that leap of faith. And why some people take it and some don't is a personal thing. That is the way maybe they grew up, or maybe they heard something that was very compelling to them and they don't have an answer, in the negative, and so they accept it. Like, whatever the case is, it's no longer about, oh, well, this person was a scientist. Okay, that doesn't matter. What we're talking about here is no longer their qualifications or how smart they are. And I don't want to give the impression that I think that people who believe in God are not smart or can't be scientists. That's a given. It's not about that. It's about putting that leap of faith on top of it, putting that philosophical inquiry above everything else and saying, okay, I'm going to make an assumption now. And asking why some people make an assumption and others don't is interesting, but it doesn't speak to the quality of the evidence.
Yeah, I'm not looking to scientists or scholars or, smarter people as the authority on the issue, just as examples. Because we could go to just common people and ask, why do some believe and some don't? I go to the intelligentsia simply because, and again, I hate to keep bringing his name up, but C.S. Lewis. What you described in his conversion was sort of the final domino that fell. There were a lot of considerations that he put in before that. It wasn't just that the myth, and what he described it was that this is a true myth. I think that's what Tolkien said to him. It wasn't just that domino. There was the whole idea of justice, and where does that come from, and fairness, where does that come from, and the idea.
Yeah, but here,
I'm sure you read Mere Christianity in your class.
Right.
And,
for sure. I have been haunted by Lewis since going to college. But my thing here is that, do you realize that if you are arguing that, do we want to look at the quality of the evidence is what I'm asking. Because if we do want to look at the quality of the evidence as a reason that people believe, that is shitty evidence. It's essentially the no true Scotsman fallacy. Tolkien, as much as I love him, gave Lewis a no true Scotsman fallacy, and Lewis was like, okay, I guess that's the final nail in the coffin. They're myths. Well, this is a true myth. Oh, okay. That is a fallacy. It's a fallacious argument, and if that is what tipped him over the edge, then that was a bad reason. I'm not saying he was wrong. This is apart from whether or not he got the correct conclusion. He did that for a bad reason. So that just
if that was the only reason, but there's a mountain of evidence behind that.
No. Every single piece of evidence needs to stand on its own. You don't get to say, well, there are a bunch of things that are flawed that make it okay. If he is being convinced by things like the no true Scotsman fallacy, that throws a lot of doubt in my mind as to what other things he was convinced by. And it doesn't matter how far back that train goes. If there are fallacies in there, then it's very possible that he accepted really bad evidence and came to a wrong conclusion. Do you get where I'm coming from? This is not an attack on any one person. Lewis seemed like a cool guy. In fact, I heard he was super kinky. It was awesome. But like the problem here is that we're having two different conversations at once. We're having, is the evidence good? And what do people do with that evidence, whether or not it is good? And in this case, the evidence that we have presented is not good. It's a fallacy. Whether or not there are fallacies in the back, we don't know. The thing that convinced him is a fallacy. And whether or not he accepted that speaks to how reliable he is as a person who can synthesize good evidence. If that was what convinced him, that throws doubt on the other things that convinced him. So we're coming at this in two different ways, and I'm trying to like straddle both horses at once. I don't want to confuse you, but do you see where I'm coming from?
I certainly do.
Okay.
I certainly do. We're going to disagree on the weight of the evidence, obviously, and any other evidences I could raise, which is the point of this call. But if I guess that was just my whole question was why do some believe and some don't? Why do some find the evidence compelling and some don't?
Yeah, it's epistemic.
I tend to think. I'm sorry. I tend to think personally that it comes down to a personal, well, for lack of a better term, a personal preference.
Really?
I think some people. Yeah. Does that sound simplistic?
No. It's not simplistic. I just disagree with it entirely. So if you were convinced of a thing, I hope that you would, have good reasons for being convinced of the thing. But if you're convinced of the thing, could you just choose to no longer be convinced? I don't think you can.
No.
I don't think preference.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think preference comes into it. I think that
But
you
the idea
are
of God is
you
a
are kind of
different animal.
you're kind of beholden to your epistemic toolbox. You're relying on your understanding of the world around you to build the clearest picture of the world around you. So I don't think preference has anything to do with it. Yeah.
Well, I think when it comes to God, that's a different animal than if we were considering other things.
Why?
Because we have, and this is what I guess we could morph into our sinful nature conversation for next time. But
you're just
to
like
not
a
believe in God.
matryoshka doll. I said it correctly this time. You're like a matryoshka doll of good topics. You know, we just kind of pop you open and there's another good topic inside. And like we're just digging so deep that I feel like we need to write out a tree of different, like, I want you to call in and talk about what evidence, you know, maybe a specific piece of evidence that you are convinced by or you think we should be convinced by.
Or I want to make sure that we don't lose the good stuff we're talking about in this call on the next call. So what I would like to see personally, if you want to go the evidence route, we absolutely can. But I don't get the sense that that's really where your question lies. I want to know why God plays by different rules and why we should believe that. Because if you can convince us that God, like the concept of God, proving God, believing in God, plays by different rules than believing in and accepting other things, then we can have the conversation about...
Like what?
Yeah.
Just to give him an example so that he can...
Well, yeah, you just said we're beholden to our epistemic toolbox. We do not have a choice. And Scott says, I believe that is different for God. God is a different animal to all of these other things.
Oh, God.
And that's what I want to dive into next time because it will tie into this call. But I'm getting the sense, Scott, that it has something to do with our quote-unquote sinful nature as well.
Well, I definitely believe that. I believe, and the Bible is real clear on this, which is where I get my authority on this, is that every human being is predisposed to not, if not believe in God, at least not to pursue Him, and so we're predisposed to find other ways to go. And
I think that's weird. I think that's weird. I honestly, it just sounds like a way to excuse, well, you know, you're just predisposed to not believe me.
Yeah,
or,
I frankly don't see how that can be taken in any way that is not insinuating that we are either lazy or dishonest, frankly. Yeah. And I know that that's not what you're implying because you seem like a nice person who takes us at our word and we're doing the same for you. But when you talk about this next time, think about what it's sounding like on the other side, because either you're saying you have not pursued correctly or enough, or you have and you're lying to yourself and other people about it. So we're kind of in a bind there, but I'm curious to hear how you're going to answer that next time you call in.
Yeah, thank you for calling, Scott. It is always fun to talk to
guys.
you.
Okay.
I enjoy it.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
So many things I want to talk. So if you're a believer,
he is getting better at holding to one topic though, which is good.
He is. If you're a believer and you want to see these conversations had more than just when Scott calls in, you need to call us. Like, we want more believers to call in so that we can have these discussions, because we don't want to create straw men that we're going to then attack. It's important to have the dialogue and show how to have the dialogue in a positive, productive way.
Yeah.
That said, I said matryoshka, and apparently I mispronounced it now. So I said babushka, and I got emails and messages and every different, it's called a matryoshka doll. You need to quit calling it a babushka doll. Okay, fine, I called it, and now my pronunciation. I'm sorry, look, I'm trying, you guys, okay?
Oh my gosh. All
Holy
right,
crap.
So we do have someone else on the line, but I think we're going to take that in the after show because we're coming up on time.
Oh, geez, you're right.
Yeah. So Gabriel, if you want to jump into our Discord, we are going to have a little bit of an after show over there where we continue these conversations, and this seems like a really good kind of crowdsourcing conversation starter to have. So
agreed.
Absolutely. Let's read some super chats.
All right, let's start out with Amit sent $10 and said, Can't make the show live, but I'll catch it later. Have a great time, folks. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you. Empathy and Respect, who is Isaiah, sent us $25 for your computer. Thank you, Isaiah. It means a lot.
It does. Jonathan Fuller sent $5 and says, garlic is life. Only reason I wouldn't want to be a vampire.
I agree.
Garlic is love.
Garlic
is life. Sorry.
Are you going to tear up a little bit here?
No, I'm just having Shrek flashbacks. Go ahead.
No, for real. We made a dish called chicken and 40 cloves of garlic.
Oh, yes.
And it bit us in the butt.
Literally, V needed to sleep in another room.
But it was really good. Maybe I'm the vampire.
I regret nothing.
Exceptionally Average sent us $20 and says, buy something you need, except Bibles. Buy something useful. Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Argy.
Nope, we're all the way up here, my love.
Oh, my goodness. Jonathan sent another $5 and says, I'm giving you $5 to say I want my other $5 back over that pun, Eric.
The defanged pun.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Flaming Skeptic also sent $5, says $5 for the defanged pun. So
yes, that's right.
We're split down the middle there.
Thank you. I love puns. RG sent $7.99. Is that Australian?
Yeah.
The only vampires in the multiverse are in Magic the Gathering.
Multiverse vampires.
I love the Magic the Gathering universe, but there are so many good fictional universes that have vampires in them. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Blazing Wizard Pope sent us 20
Krona, I believe.
Yes. Howdy doodly do.
How diddly do.
How diddly do. Would anyone like any toast? I'm confused. But thank you, I think.
Yeah, anyway, Sarah Dye sent $20 and says, go take care of yourself, take a bath, make some tea, read a book, pet a cat. Excellent quote from V.
New merch coming soon. And then Jesse Chappelle sent us $66.60.
Holy moly.
So gotta love that 666. Thank goodness for shows like these and people like you two and anyone in the crew and on the audience, of course.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for you as well, Jesse. Thank you. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to go to the Discord, so we hope to see you there for a little bit. And don't forget to check out Versus this Wednesday. The link is in the description. It's also already scheduled, so you have no excuses.
Also, if you're a patron and you are looking for how to join the patron hangout with us this week, stay tuned on Patreon, take a look. And also, if you are a Dean's List patron, keep an eye out for an email from us so that we can make sure that we set up a one-on-one sit-down conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, until next time. We're glad we had this talk.